Hi, I'm Nick Harris from NRK Music and I'm from Britain. NRK Music was first set up in 1996 and it grew out of a DJ booking agency that we'd run since about 93, 94. And we used to look after DJs like Derek Carter, Ian Pooley, John Aquaviva, Angel Moraes. And the next logical step really for us was to set up a label. We had so many great artists on the roster that it was the next logical step to put that onto vinyl and CD and release a label. And so that was in 1996. Fast forward 15 years, we're now 2011. Basically we're gearing up for a celebrationary year next year with a few special releases planned. Hopefully taking the label out on tour across Europe and the rest of the world. And really just though it's for us it's business as usual, you know, we might be celebrating a 15th year, but you know, every year is a celebration really in this day and age to have a label still running, so it's really business as usual for us, you know.
Medication time. Medication time. Medication time.
We're going to do a CD compendium of some of the highlights, some of the best tracks and mixes from the last 15 years. So that will probably come out in about April. And there's also some plans to get some of the classic tracks remixed, but we can't say too much about that at the moment because it's still in the pipeline. And there'll also be a mix CD from Paul Wolford, which will be the next in the Lab series. And we have Ed Davenport's debut album as well coming out. And yeah, just lots of stuff in the pipeline really, but definitely the kind of best of CD collection will be the focus on the history of the label, and really it's just a plan to just take things forward as per usual, you know. What's going on in Bristol at the moment is absolutely fantastic, you know. There's so many great new producers, DJs coming through, lots of new labels, and the music is of great quality. I always find living in Bristol though that house music was never particularly big in Bristol. It was a big spot for drum and bass, for hip hop, for breaks and things like that, but house never really took off as it did in other cities like London and Manchester and Liverpool. So really what's happening now, I don't really think it's a case of catch-up either. It's just the next generation of producers and artists and DJs, you know, just doing their thing, and it just so happens that it is of a house sound, but it's definitely got its more particular sound. It's a bit more bassy, which, you know, ties in definitely with Bristol's kind of bass heritage, you know, through drum and bass and reggae and blues and things like that.
What are some of the newcomers, interesting newcomers that have been catching your ear?
There's stacks of the guys really. There's DJs like October, Apple Blim, Pinch, which is more on the dubstep side.
These are all Bristol.
All these are guys from Bristol. There's Julio Bashmore, Future Boogie Crew. There's tons, you know, and they seem to be popping up every week, you know. So it's just great that there's definitely a refocus on Bristol, because it hasn't happened in a few years. You know, there was the whole kind of Massive Attack, Tricky, Portishead thing. But that was 20 years ago, you know, and that was fantastic. But there's not really been a movement in Bristol since then that's really kind of caught on until now. So, and it's great that, you know, it's another strain or strand of house. You know, it's not strictly house. It's definitely, you can hear the influence of the drum and bass stuff. You can hear the influence of Massive Attack, Portishead, these kind of acts. But it's definitely out there on its own and seems to be doing really well, you know.
Medication time. Medication time.
This is the third or fourth time I've been to Berlin this year, and every time I come it still feels as vibrant as it was the last time I came, you know. I think that Berlin has a kind of a special quality to it, you know. It's definitely the people who live here, the people who create here and work here. And, you know, hopefully it's not going to go away, you know. It's for me, it's such a vibrant place that it will be a shame to see things stagnate, you know, and I'd like to think that Berlin will continue to push forward. And I think that happens as well with the influence of other territories as well. I mean, talking of Bristol, I think there's definitely a Bristol-Berlin connection. You know, there seems to be a lot of Bristol artists DJing in Berlin and vice versa. Berlin DJs coming to Bristol, and people are taking on influence from, you know, where they travel. So it's great to be back in Berlin, and from what I've seen so far this weekend, it's business as usual. You know, it's great.